Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and on tonight's show, we got a lot to talk about. First up, some new conflicting reporting on Aaron Rodgers and his future with the Pittsburgh Steelers that we'll talk about at the top. Then we'll get into the latest when it comes to the wide receiver position when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Could the Steelers not be bringing back either Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin III this offseason? I'll have an answer for that here later in the show. Then Issac Seumalo, could he not be coming back either? There's a Steelers insider that says it's a long shot for him to return in 2026. Also, should the Steelers re-sign James Pierre or Asante Samuel Jr.? It's a very interesting question that I'll give my answer to later. And then Big Ben Roethlisberger responds to Joey Porter Sr. and his criticism of Big Ben Roethlisberger during Super Bowl week. So make sure you guys stick around to see what Ben had to say. But before we get into the content today, make sure you give me a follow on X if you haven't already, guys, at Jack_Sperry. I put out additional Steelers content on that social media platform, and that's where I put my instant reactions to all the latest Steelers rumors, all the latest Steelers news, do film study stuff on there. I also do a bunch of NFL draft analysis for us here at Chat Sports on my X account. So if you guys want more content from me, that's where you guys can find it for free at Jack_Sperry. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support on that platform. Well, now let's get into the news and rumors of the day, starting, of course, with Aaron Rodgers, where there's a ton of conflicting reporting being done right now surrounding the Steelers starting quarterback and his status for the 2026 season. Is he going to retire? Is he going to return for a second season here at age 43, which he will be in December? And there's a lot of different people saying a bunch of different things. So let's kind of catch you up on all the latest reporting. Tom Pelissero said during Super Bowl Sunday that the quote-unquote odds are increasing that Rodgers returns. Pelissero also said that Rodgers has had several conversations with Mike McCarthy and Steelers players such as DK Metcalf. Brooke Pryor said last week from ESPN that Rodgers is more likely to come back than not next season. But then yesterday, Aditi Kinkhabwala from CBS Sports says Rodgers is quote-unquote far more likely to retire than to return for the 2026 season, completely contradicting those previous reports. Jerry Dulac today from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said that Rodgers' chances of a return are better than not, so maybe that means he is going to retire. The real ones know there. But then Jeremy Fowler from ESPN also said today that a Rodgers decision he thinks could take months before Rodgers decides if he wants to play during the 2026 season. This is exactly what Fowler had to say earlier today. I just checked on this. The Steelers remain open to a potential Aaron Rodgers return, but they got to figure out if he wants to play or not. That could take months. Now, personally, guys, I disagree with Jeremy Fowler. I think people assume because it took months last year that Rodgers is going to take the same amount of time to eventually sign with an NFL team this year. But I think that this year's situation is completely different from last, and I really doubt that it will take months for Rodgers to make a decision. My guess is we get a decision from Rodgers within the next 2 weeks before the start of NFL free agency. And make no mistake, guys, Rodgers kind of made his decision last year in March. When he had that visit to Pittsburgh, he only took one visit. There's a reason why he only took one visit, and it was to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And pretty much the way that it went down is Rodgers had some responsibilities, or at least he felt like he had some responsibilities to people in his life that he was close to that were dealing with cancer. And he didn't want to sign with a team and then have those people's situations kind of get worse, and then he would have to leave the team and retire to be able to take care of his people. So what he did instead was he stayed in communication with the Pittsburgh Steelers, says, look, I'm going to be coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin said himself, he knew something, all right? He said it on the Pivot podcast during training camp last year. He knew Aaron Rodgers was coming long before he officially announced he would be joining the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was just that Rodgers wanted to wait until those situations with his people close to him improved before he made a full season commitment to a football team. And this year, those situations are completely different. Apparently, those people are doing much better, and Rodgers is not going to have to, hold things out to see if he has to retire or not based on those situations. So I bet we get final word at least by free agency. The next couple of weeks, of course, free agency, the tampering period opens on March 9th, which is coming up here. I think for sure we have a decision from Aaron Rodgers before that, but it could be as early as later this week. I mean, it really could come down at any point. And, if it does take months, and if Rodgers does want to take his time again like last year, my take on the situation, even as somebody that would like Rodgers to come back for another season, I do not want Pittsburgh to wait for him this year. Like, I don't want them to forego any other opportunities that they feel like would be, good opportunities for the team just to wait for Aaron Rodgers and wait until June to decide if he wants to play football this year. Like, that's not something that I'm interested in doing. I would tell Aaron, listen, man, you've had multiple months here since the end of the 2025 season to make your decision as to whether or not you want to play with us this year. If you don't want to be a Steeler, that's fine. We're going to move on, though, and we're going to find somebody else in free agency this year. And if he hasn't decided by free agency and he says, I still got to take more time to decide if I want to play, I tell him, no hard feelings. We're going to go out and pursue Malik Willis instead because, Malik is somebody that, does have the upside to be a franchise-level quarterback. I would probably want Aaron Rodgers over Malik Willis if I can, just because Rodgers, I think, gives this team a better chance to compete in the playoffs than Malik Willis would next season. Not to mention he's significantly cheaper, so you can put a better surrounding cast around Aaron Rodgers. And I still think Rodgers, with the proper supporting cast, can play very well for this football team. But if it's an unknown whether Aaron's going to play or not next season, by the time we get to free agency, I'm not wasting any more time. I'm pursuing Malik Willis. But my best guess, guys, is that we will get word within the next probably 2 or 3 weeks that Aaron Rodgers will be returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. And my thinking on that is I kind of go back to Tom Pelissero's report where he says that Rodgers has spoken with Mike McCarthy not once, but several times. Why would he have several conversations with the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers to just congratulate him, right? That's just not, maybe he calls him once to congratulate him on the job, but if you're having multiple conversations with the head coach of an NFL team, you're putting together a plan. You're kind of, having discussions on what it would look like if he were to return. And my guess is McCarthy is somebody that wants Rodgers to return, is going to tailor the offensive or the offseason kind of plan to rebuild the offense around Aaron and kind of what he wants to do. So I'm sure Aaron is getting some input and he's providing his input to Mike McCarthy, and I'm sure that they're collaborating on that. And then once that plan is in place, I think he decides, I'm coming back for another season here in the Steel City. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. What will be Aaron Rodgers' decision this offseason? Will he decide to play, or will he decide to retire? Type P for play, type R for retire. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. While I tell you about our sponsor, let me know your answer to today's pinned question down there in the comments. And you guys have been asking for merch here on Steelers Talk for multiple years. Our bosses here at Chat Sports have finally greenlit some great merch opportunities for us here, guys. And we have the Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt just in time for St. Patrick's Day for you guys to take advantage of. Go to chatsports.com/DCGreen. Down there in the comments and description of today's show is the link. Click that link, make a purchase. It's only $30 to get this awesome t-shirt here. It's got that great green color, of course, with the Steel City Drinking Team logo on there. Limited edition. This is only going to be available up until around St. Patrick's Day this year, and then it's gone forever, all right? So get yours right now. The more that we sell, the more merch opportunities we are going to get. My bosses tell me if we can really hit a home run with this Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt, we can do some awesome stuff for free agency. So if you guys want more merch opportunities here on Steelers Talk throughout the calendar year, get yours today. Chatsports.com/pitgreen to get your Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt today. All right, so now let's move over to the wide receiver position here, where the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Filipaldo says that Pittsburgh has not been happy with Roman Wilson's quote-unquote professionalism in his first 2 years as an NFL wide receiver. This is what Filipaldo had to say earlier this week. I did notice the QB, Aaron Rodgers, and the OC, Arthur Smith, were not happy with Roman's professionalism. The OC is gone, but the QB probably is back. It's up to Wilson to become more of a pro. I think he's trying, but he has to produce at some point. I don't think he's a bad apple or anything like that. I just think he's one of those guys where it comes slow for him. And then Jerry Dulac, his partner there at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, says this about the upcoming third-year receiver. For some reason, there was something Arthur Smith didn't like about him, but I don't think they plan to give up on him. He has a lot of natural ability that I think will still make him a quality receiver. So it seems like Jerry thinks that the Steelers will keep him around, although it does seem like Roman is adjusting to the NFL, particularly slowly at this point. And, this report does link up with reports that we got at the end of Roman's rookie season last offseason, where he had trouble picking up the playbook. People people kind of wondered, why is Roman Wilson a healthy scratch every week? Why isn't he playing in the playoffs? He's practicing every week, but he's not playing in the games. Why is that? Apparently the answer to that was he wasn't picking up the playbook. And, I think that kind of points to the quote-unquote professionalism stuff that Ray points out there in that report. And what I think that this is, and specifically when it comes to his connection with Aaron Rodgers, is that Roman has a hard time, what I call tempoing his routes, where you sync up when you're trying to break open based on the timing of the play and the footwork and the eyes of the quarterback. And sometimes Roman just runs full speed throughout his route, and sometimes he's the third or fourth read in the progression, and Rodgers is going through his progression, but by the time he gets to Roman, he's already kind of covered up because he already made his break way too early, and that would really frustrate Aaron Rodgers, which is part of the reason why Rodgers wanted the team to go out and get Adam Thielen and MVS, because he felt like those guys were more professional in the way that they run routes, and it's something that Roman's going to have to be better at if he wants to coexist with Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers offense. So could a full offseason, working in Malibu with Aaron Rodgers, get Roman synced up with him? It's certainly possible. I do think Roman has a lot of ability. There's a reason why he went in the third round of the NFL draft just a couple years ago, guys. It's not just, he's a scrub and the Steelers took a terrible player. No, I think he's got the skill set to be something similar to like a Brandon Cooks or maybe even a Randall Cobb, somebody that has worked with Aaron Rodgers. And Brandon Cooks just a couple years ago was phenomenal in Mike McCarthy's offense. He had a great season back in 2023. Somebody that can run those deep crossers and somebody that, is smaller but has good speed and really good hands. I still think Roman Wilson has those qualities where he could be a good receiver in this league. He just has to be more quote-unquote professional here and learn how to tempo those routes a little bit better and kind of learn how to play at the NFL level. Hopefully he can do that this offseason. However, I can't say a trade is completely off the table here if the Steelers feel like this is not somebody that's eventually going to quote-unquote get it at the NFL level. I could see them trading him for, a mid to late day 3 pick. He was a former day 2 draft pick, so I'm sure there's a lot of teams around the league that liked him coming out of Michigan that would probably be willing to dish out a 6th or a 7th round pick for Roman Wilson. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens with Roman this offseason. But speaking of the wide receiver position, it also sounds like Calvin Austin III probably isn't going to be coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. This is what Calvin had to say recently on his future with the team. Pittsburgh, just being real, they might not want me, or they might have a different vision, and that's why I say at the end of the day, it's just straight business. It's just a straight business decision. Obviously, Coach T did step down. Whether I stay or leave, it's going to be a new situation regardless. Even if I stay, we have a whole new staff, so it's definitely something I'm excited about and have been praying over. So, that definitely sounds like an answer to me, where Calvin Austin is probably going to be ending up elsewhere heading into the 2026 season. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section, how many wide receivers from last year's team is going to be on the team this season? Is it just going to be DK Metcalf and Ben Skoranek? Could Roman Wilson be on the team next year as well? Let me know the number of receivers that were on the team last year that you think will be back in 2026. Speaking of players that might not be back next year, Issac Seumalo, according to Ray Filipaldo, he's a long shot to return to the team in 2026, according to him. This is what Ray had to say about the chances of Seumalo going somewhere else in NFL free agency. I just think it's a long shot for Issac Seumalo, age 32, missed 7 games the last 2 seasons. I just think it's a long shot that the Steelers want to bring him back and roll the dice that he's going to be able to get through the next couple of seasons. Now, listen, man, I don't necessarily disagree with Ray on this, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Seumalo returns. The Steelers might want to keep that continuity on the offensive line. This is the best that this Steelers offensive line has looked in years, and Seumalo is kind of the elder statesman on that group. Like, it sounds like either Broderick Jones or Dylan Cook will be back at left tackle, and then everybody on the right side of the Steelers offensive line is going into their 3rd season, still very young players. So they need a veteran in that group, and Seumalo is the guy that has cohesive chemistry with those guys. And I know he's dealt with some injuries over the last few years, but when he's in there, he's a very, very good football player, and he shouldn't be that expensive to bring back for somebody at his age. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he ends up leaving as well. Maybe the Steelers want to move Broderick Jones to left guard. Maybe they feel comfortable in Spencer Anderson at left guard. Maybe they want to draft Vega Ione, the guard out of Penn State, in the 1st round. Maybe that's the plan they want to go down. I don't know what they're going to do at left guard this offseason, guys, but it's definitely going to be interesting. For me, I would love to bring back Issac Seumalo. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section, and give me a thumbs up if you to help out the show today. It really does help us out. The real ones know that the best way to help out the channel is click that thumbs up icon. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you're enjoying our content and that they should recommend it to other Steelers fans like yourselves. Now we can shift our focus here to the cornerback position and whether or not the Steelers should bring back James Pierre or Asante Seumalo Jr. this offseason. Obviously, Joey Porter Jr. is this team's number one corner on the outside, but I thought James Pierre and Asante Seumalo Jr. did a pretty good job for this Steelers defense last year in the second half of the season. The question is, which one do you bring back for another couple seasons here in Pittsburgh? You guys can take a look at the PFF grading. Last year, James Pierre finished with an 86.2 PFF grade, which was second in all of football. All right, that is extremely impressive, and you might say that's a limited sample size, but he played a good chunk of that second half of the year, and then Asante Seumalo Jr. played a little bit towards the end. He didn't play enough snaps to register in the rankings for PFF, but a 70.1 PFF grade is certainly not bad, and I'm not trying to say PFF grading is gospel or anything like that, but anybody that's watched the film on James Pierre will tell you this guy absolutely balled out. Yet despite that, you look at the projected market values on PFF and SpoTrack, like they're projecting James Pierre just a 1 year, like $2 million deal right now. I think he probably ends up getting more than that. And then Asante Seumalo Jr., they're only projecting at like a 1 year prove-it deal at like $3.5 million. So, honestly, I'd be cool with whatever the Steelers want to do here. I think both these players are pretty darn good. But if I had to, pick a preference, I would like James Pierre to be back next year. I thought, he was great all throughout the year last season, even going back to camp where he led the team in interceptions on defense last year and was a standout at camp. Then he gets the opportunity to play once some of those injuries kicked in, and he was phenomenal the entire season. He's great in man coverage, exactly what Patrick Graham wants to run here in Pittsburgh on the opposite side of Joey Porter Jr. And if you can get him for anything close to that $2 million per season price tag that SpoTrack is currently projecting for James Pierre, that is an absolute steal, and you got to bring him back to this defense, in my opinion. So take your pick down there in the comment section. Type JP for James Pierre or ASJ for Asante Seumalo Jr., and type neither if you think that they should go out and get somebody else to put on the other side of Joey Porter Jr. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section. Now, I wanted to finish up today's show here with a little bit of Big Ben Roethlisberger. We addressed the story last week, very briefly on Joey Porter Sr. kind of, blasting Big Ben Roethlisberger during Super Bowl week, calling him a bad person and a bad teammate. Well, Big Ben, on his podcast, the Football and Podcast, kind of addressed it. He didn't really, address PZ Sr. at all. He kind of just talked about his own personal growth that he has had throughout the years as an individual. And this is what he had to say. I thought it was pretty heartfelt. He says, "I think about my own life, and it reminded me of the transformation that I've gone through in my life. That only comes from the grace of God. We're all immature at times, and we're all selfish. And so I think as we grow and we mature, and again, I say it's only through the grace of God that we can look back and be like, man, look how much I've changed. I'm proud of that. I like to think as we mature and as we grow in our faith, I grow in my faith, and it's less about me, number one. I think a lot of us inherently, that's what we are. We're born thinking I'm number one. I think as I've grown in my faith and with my family and everything, it's like, man, or me needs to come way down, and God goes number one, my family, my friends, and then me. And so I think I go through that every day. Fast forward 5 years, I hope then in 5 years I'm looking back at this version of me and I'm still being like, holy cow, he's continued to be transformed. And the reason why I kind of wanted to bring up these comments today, guys, is first of all to say I'm happy for Big Ben Roethlisberger for having the humility to maybe look at some of the things that he was doing, in his younger days and saying, yeah, maybe I was being a bit selfish or maybe being a little bit immature. But it's also a great story of how, people are never finished products, and you're always trying to go on that journey of personal growth. And, Big Ben Roethlisberger is always going to be, one of my personal heroes as a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, won 2 Super Bowls for this football team, but also you just care about him as a human being, wanting him to, find, his purpose in life and all those different things. And it sounds like with his family and his faith journey, he's certainly finding that. So, has Big Ben Roethlisberger been a perfect teammate in the past? Probably not. Has he been a great person at times, and especially in his younger days? Probably not. All right, the fame and, the notoriety probably got to his head a little bit, but, it seems like he has, the wherewithal to kind of take a look at himself in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm imperfect. And so I've made some bad decisions in my life, but, I'm going to try and continue to grow from that and try to be a good person as I move forward. So, I just wanted to share that message to everybody out there because I think it's a pretty inspiring one out there. So that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We're going to continue to get you guys great Steelers coverage all throughout this weekend as we prepare for extensive coverage from Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine next week. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.